It's 2021. It's no longer cool to hate on Taylor Swift. She has more than proved that she is a songwriting powerhouse and has achieved indie cred as well as pop acclaim from her fans. You may not like her music, which is fine, but it'd be wildly offensive to say she isn't talented. Yes, I am a Kanye superfan, so it's weird that I'm also a big fan of Taylor Swift, but that's just the way it goes. A lot of people who watch my channel think I'm only into really obscure music, ambient, lo-fi, vaporwave, whatever it may be, and that I'm not into pop. That is categorically untrue. Catch me vibing to some Savage Garden. Catch me singing along to any Backstreet Boys song. I think Carly Rae Jepsen and Dua Lipa are queens. Taylor is one of my favorite artists and has been for a long time, and she has a long discography, very impressive one. There are some albums that don't hold up as much as the rest, but that's why I wanted to make this video and go through them, because maybe it'll encourage some people that wrote her off as a pop artist or never gave her a real chance to actually listen to her music, because there is a lot of gold. Fair amount of these opinions might be fueled by nostalgia. I feel like I've grown up with Taylor Swift. I mean, when I was in high school, she was in high school. I feel like I've watched her evolve as a person, as an artist, and, some of these songs I love because I've been loving them for 15 years. But that being said, I hope that you guys like my ranking. I know there's going to be a couple controversial picks when it comes to the order, but let's see if you agree, and I'd love for you to drop a comment afterwards with your ranking or your thoughts on mine. If you guys saw my The National discography ranking video, I'm using the same method here where I'm taking all the songs and I'm giving them a score out of 10, and then I'm dividing it into itself to get the percentage that the album gets, and they're ranked by percentage. A couple of them are off by like less than 1%, so I'll tell you my list, I'll tell you what I think of each album, and I'll show you the record if I have it. The bottom rung of this ladder is her album Reputation. This album was a huge misfire, in my opinion. I really thought that Taylor Swift was done after this came out, and that her glory days were over, and she just lost it. Thankfully, she proved me wrong, but this album in particular is a tough listen. This is just a sea of average and forgettable songs, some of them even bad, and one great song, Delicate, which honestly feels like it could have been one of the better songs on 1989. I don't know how it ended up on this record, but it's weird because the song later in the album, Dress, is basically just a watered down version of Delicate. It's very strange. The single, Look What You Made Me Do, is a interpolation of Right Said Fred's I'm Too Sexy, which at best is at worst is kind of cringy. This is an interesting point in Taylor's career because this is right after the second bout of drama she had with Kanye West, this time involving Kim Kardashian. And unlike the first one, she was not the squeaky clean victim, and it's a very gray area as to what happened. That deserves its own video, but right now we're talking about the music. It's amazing that she bounced into what she released after this, after releasing this. I will honestly say that this album is not one I probably will ever revisit. It's just not very good to me. And it's insane to me that people are paying almost quadruple digits, yeah, $1,000 for the orange variant of this record. It's like almost objectively her worst album. Why would you pay $1,000 for it, even if you're a big fan? I don't know. I don't get it. Next up, we have the album prior to Reputation, 1989. And yes, I know a lot of you are going to be very confused that my second least favorite Taylor Swift album is a lot of people's favorite. To me, this album was Taylor's full foray into pop music, and it's very clean production, a lot of catchy tracks on there, but for me, it feels soulless. What I love about Taylor Swift's music is that there's a lot of heart and soul in it. It's relatable. This album felt very manufactured. It didn't feel like the Taylor Swift I knew and loved. It also doesn't really have a sonic identity. I feel like half the tracks are danceable, hang out with your friends in the club songs, and the other half are pseudo-emotional tracks that are sketches of the brilliant work she did on Red and Speak Now prior. Also, Out of the Woods is probably a bottom 3 song in the entire catalog for me. That track is tough. There isn't a single track on here that I think is on par with the best tracks from her other albums. And it really boggles my mind that this album gets so much praise. The producer, Jack Antonoff, I am not a fan of that man. I think that he gets also way too much praise. I feel like he puts a lot of his artists into a box and kind of stifles their creativity and their own personal vision. And while a nice polished pop piece comes out of it, I don't feel like it allows the artist to be their best self. I feel like he had a major hit with Lana Del Rey's NFR, but outside of that, almost everything he's ever produced has been a misstep to me. I'm not a fan of Fun or Bleachers, and I guess I'm just not a fan of the man himself. I just don't think this album holds up to the rest of her discography. Up next, we have Evermore. This was the second folk-forward album that Taylor Swift surprised released in the quarantine year that we just went through. The fact that this was the second album of songs that she put out with Aaron Dessner of The National producing and writing a lot of it blew Swifties' minds, and fans of The National's minds as well. At first, I was enraptured that we had 2 discs of stellar material of Taylor Swift doing an excellent, honest folk singer-songwriter set of songs. But after the dust has settled a little bit and I've re-listened to Evermore, the songs are good, but not all great. There are some incredible songs on here, especially the opener, Willow. There's also a lot of forgettable and average songs, unfortunately, when you dig deeper and the hype has worn off. The song with Chaim she did, No Body, No Crime, on first listen was a fun concept, but I find myself zoning out on subsequent listens. Coney Island is her collaboration with the entire band of The National, not just Aaron Dessner, which is a dream collab for me, and that song is great and one of my favorites on the album. I can't help but think it could have been a little better, but it's still fantastic. Ultimately and unfortunately, this album just feels like B-sides to Folklore, the first one she released. And because of that, I won't find myself revisiting the full album as much as that one because they both scratch a similar itch. One just does it better. I do own the record. It's a nice sturdy jacket. It comes in this really nice kind of emerald green record. I think it looks really nice and it sounds great too. It's a solid pressing, which is nice. Following Evermore, we have her self-titled debut. This is her most country album, and the first song is called Tim McGraw, so that should be no surprise. It also spawned some of her largest singles to date, including Picture to Burn, Teardrops on My Guitar, Should Have Said No, and the absolutely iconic Our Song that propelled her to stardom. This album doesn't get its due from your average Taylor fan, and it was written off as like her first attempt, but I think the songwriting is super strong here pretty much across the board, and while not every song is an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10, it's a great listen, especially as her first record. There are some lesser known songs like Stay Beautiful that are excellent, and I feel like they really show where she's about to go in her career. The albums are not just carried by radio singles, she has good songwriting through and through, which is why she's such a compelling artist. And then we have Lover. So after she released 1989 and Reputation, I was ready to write Taylor off, and I was not excited to hear a new Taylor Swift album. But curiosity got the best of me, and I listened to Lover. While I was listening to it, I remember having a huge grin on my face because the Taylor that I loved was back, and she was incorporating some indie vibes, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I do think that the adoration for this album has worn off a little bit over time. I was excited that she put out another good, arguably excellent record, but the gap between the best songs on the record and the not so good songs on the record started to grow with every listen. I will say that Lover and Death by a Thousand Cuts are two of her best songs, hands down, while London Boy and Me are offensively bad, and the latter of which is probably the worst song she has ever put out. The Dixie Chicks collaboration, Soon You'll Get Better, is absolutely heartbreaking and a standout from this record. And I like the edginess that she brings to a couple of these tracks lyrically, sonically. She does it way better than Reputation, especially because it's just moments as opposed to the entire aesthetic of the album. I thought that the vinyl presentation was pretty awesome. It has this really great gatefold image of her, and one side of it is on this pink record, and the other side is on a blue record. Really pretty colors, they match the cover perfectly, just a great visual to go with the record. And then we have Fearless, her second album. After the success of the first one, she followed it up with one that was even better and expanded on all of the songwriting and ideas in such a marvelous way. Now, this ranking could have been different, and this might have ranked even higher if I did the Platinum Edition, which was a re-release with extra bonus songs. I just wanted to stick with the standard studio release because, I don't know, it just felt like cheating almost. My favorite song from these sessions is Jump Then Fall. That was another 10 out of 10 to me, but that is not on this list because it's on the expanded only. Be curious to know what that ranking would have been, though. She was 18 years old when she put out this record, and she's already writing these autobiographical songs that relate to men, women, boys, girls. Everyone appreciated her storytelling at this age, which is amazing. Love Story and You Belong With Me became two of her most iconic and anthemic songs of her entire career. She leans a bit more into pop on this record, but there still is a twang of country, perhaps the last real album that has some country elements that are discernible. It's really impressive how many amazing songs are on this record. There's very few low points, and overall, as a sophomore album, it is anything but a slump. I don't own the record, but I do have her rework that she's working on, because if you don't know, she's re-recording all of her early albums. I'm getting that in the mail when that releases, so I'm excited to hear the reworks, but I do not own Fearless on vinyl. And now we have Folklore. If you guys watched my top albums of the year last year, I put Folklore very high up on the list because it was a terrific album, competing with a lot of other heavy hitters like Hayley Williams and Phoebe Bridgers. I think I put it at number 3 on my list, if I remember correctly. It was one of the highlights of my quarantine year, without a doubt, to find out, oh, Taylor Swift, who was back in my good graces after Lover, is putting out an album collaborating with the guitarist of my favorite band? Wild. Would have never thought that in a million years. And it exceeded all expectations on first listen. she confidently strides into this new folky genre while still paying homage to a lot of the genres she played with in the past, and Aaron Dessner's musical genius compositions really enhance all these tracks. The first 4 or 5 songs of this record hit so hard and they don't let up. I think Last Great American Dynasty is one of her best tracks. Also, her first, but as we learned, not last, collaboration with Bon Iver, aka Justin Vernon, Exile, is a standout from the album that I think will last the test of time. There are a few duds on the record, but ultimately this is one of her strongest collection of songs front to back. And it features some of her best songs individually. If you guys recall, she did this crazy release where she had like 8 different covers, 8 different vinyl variants. Very cool rollout, I think. Some people gave her crap for it. I thought it was a fun way to give the fans something if they're completionists, if they just wanted a bunch of options. I thought it was awesome. I got a couple versions actually, but I really like this turquoisey one. If you put it under light, you can see it kind of has a little smoke effect going on, which is really cool. And now let's talk about Red. Red is a total triumph of a record, a victory lap after the incredible Speak Now that preceded it. What's interesting about this album to me is while it still pays homage to a lot of the genres she's played with up till this point, she is going forward and showing us a little more of her pop side like she does on 1989, with songs like 22, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, I Knew You Were Trouble, and a little bit of her future indie side she dabbles with on Lover with songs like State of Grace and Red. She even does an excellent Mazzy Star impression with the song Sad, Beautiful, Tragic. The one song that doesn't really fit on the album is Starlight, but you know what? That song is just pure fun. It's like candy for your ears. It's incredibly infectious, and while it's not really part of the album thematically, I really like it. There's a little bit of all forms of Taylor on this record, and she's simultaneously firing on all cylinders. At this point in her career, it felt like she was incapable of giving us an album that was less than great, and unfortunately, she kind of did after that. But she simultaneously gave us, quality-wise, what is probably the best record of her career. All the way through the song 22 is all gas, no breaks. I Almost Do is not a bad song, but I feel like it's a breather after just the incredible opening run. The rest of the album doesn't quite reach the peak of the first run, but it's all basically 8s or 9s to me, and it is just an amazing record. Groundbreaking pop record, tons of genre-bending influences. I love this album. And I own the album on vinyl. I was actually able to track down the rarest version of this record, but it is not a fully happy story, unfortunately. There was a promo copy for the American Country Music Awards that was given out on red vinyl, and it is the holy grail for Taylor Swift fans. I found a copy for a very reasonable price, and I was unbelievably elated. The problem is, I brought it home, and the A-B side will not track. It looks more or less fine, a little bit of wear, but nothing crazy, but the needle will not stay in the groove. Anywhere I drop it, it just skips. I don't know if this is fixable. I really hope it is, because I would love to have a good copy of this. The CD side sounds fine, but this AB, I don't know how to fix it. I haven't tried giving it a deep clean yet. I haven't tried the toothpick method. There's a couple different things I want to give a shot to, but if you guys have an idea of how I can potentially fix this record, please let me know. Leave a comment. Finally, while Red might be her best record, Speak Now is my favorite record. Taylor's songwriting went Super Saiyan on this record compared to Fearless. The first 4 songs are such a strong run, hitting on so many different emotions wrapped up in these incredible little song packages. It captures a young, playful, emotional Taylor Swift while also showing her first real look into adult problems and things that people above the teenage age can really relate to and sink their teeth into. The album's just a total joy to listen to. You have the energetic Mine, The Story of Us, Sparks Fly, Better Than Revenge style songs, or the storytelling like the song Speak Now that she does so well, where she paints these really vivid movies in our head. Then there's really sad songs like Back to December and Last Kiss that hit you right in the feels. Innocent is another major standout for me on the album, which was written as a direct response to the VMAs incident with Kanye. This album is Taylor Swift at her best to me, and I think it's my favorite album of her discography. I own the Record Store Day pressing of this one, which is awesome. It's hand numbered on the bottom, and it's on clear vinyl. I think it was originally supposed to be clear with smoke, but there must have been some kind of pressing issue. Anyway, the clear vinyl looks good. It sounds great, super punchy. I listened to it again while doing my research for this video, and it's a great pressing of an amazing album. All right, Swifties, come for me. Casual fans, let me know what you think if you listen to more of Taylor Swift. This is my ranking. You don't have to agree with it, and in fact, I hope that you share your thoughts in the comments because I would love to hear what your ranking would be. Taylor Swift is one of those artists that I think is immensely talented. She deserves all of her success, and while there are a few missteps in her discography, the good far outweighs the bad, and she will be remembered forever for putting out some of the most honest, emotional music that I've ever heard and related to in my lifetime. So Thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I hopefully will do more of these discography rankings over time. Until then, more good content coming out soon. Take it easy.